Gaecheonjeol, aka Korea's National Foundation Day. Not to be confused with Gwangbokjeol, which is Korea's National Liberation Day. That's a different holiday. And I reflected upon that holiday, Gwangbokjeol, in episode number 35, what Korean National Liberation Day means to me for Korean diaspora. You should check that out as well if you're Korean or interested in Korean history and culture and all that shit. So that was the Gwangbokjeol special, and now we have a cheeky Gaecheonjeol special. Oh yeah. And what's in store for this episode? Well, let me tell you, my dear listeners, I'm talking garlic and tigers and bears. Oh my. Oh yeah. And as a cheeky bonus, ghosts and aliens. Ooh. So we'll talk about Korea's creation myth and Dangun, the legendary founder and GAWD-king of Korea's first kingdom called Gojoseon Kingdom. Is Korea really 5,000 years old? Do Korean people come from aliens? Who gives a fuck? Why should we give a fuck or any fucks at all? Tune in for today's episode of Mime Time to find out. Oh yeah. You know what time it is? It's Mime Time. Welcome to Mime Time, a show where we talk about the Asian diaspora experience, overcoming our identity struggles so that we can become the best version of ourselves. That's right, kids. You don't have to feel sorry for yourself or wish you were born a different race or be confused. I mean, it's okay to be confused and lost. We all are. But I just want to share my ideas, my stories, and awesome conversations with our guests so that we can connect with ourselves, our heritages, our cultures, and so on, so that, maybe you guys don't have to waste a lot of fucking time and bullshit like I did. The things we talk about on this show, I like to think that if I had listened to these conversations and these ideas and statements about life and spirituality and culture and identity when I was a kid, if I listened to these things when I was a kid, perhaps I wouldn't have been so fucked up. Or at least I would have had a better framework and attitude of how to deal with my identity struggle and my lack of self-confidence and all these things. Anyways, you don't even have to be Asian. You could be half Asian. You could be a third culture kid. You could be a minority or someone who just feels like they don't belong anywhere. And I'm sure you would get some value out of this podcast. And if you do, please, please, please consider supporting the show by sharing it with your friends who would get something out of it. Anyways, happy Gaecheonjeol, everyone. Gaecheonjeol is Korea's National Foundation Day on October 3rd. That falls on a Sunday this year, 2021. So Monday, October 4 is the designated day off work. And when this episode is published, I hope those of you in Korea are enjoying your holiday. The Sino-Korean characters, Gaecheonjeol, what do they mean? Jeol means festival or holiday. Like a couple episodes ago when we talked about Gwangbokjeol, Gwangbok literally means the restoration of light plus jeol, festival or holiday. So Gwangbokjeol would translate to something like the day that the light was restored. Today we have Gaecheonjeol. What does Gaecheon mean? Gae means opening or to open, and Cheon means heaven. So it literally means opening of heaven. This celebrates the foundation of the Korean nation. It actually commemorates two dates, October 3rd, 2457 BCE, and October 3rd, 2333 BCE. That's 2457 BCE and 2333 BCE. That would be about 4,478 years ago and 4,354 years ago, respectively, which is almost 5,000 years ago. And that's why people say Korea has 5,000 years of history. I don't know anyone personally who was alive back then to interview for this episode. So let's get into the legendary origin of Korea. On October 3rd, 2457 BCE, Hwanung, a son of a god of heaven, came hard upon the earth like a god, mate. That's the Gaecheon. That's the opening of heaven. Hwanung coming down from heaven. Later, Hwanung had sex with a woman who used to be a bear. We'll get to that in a cheeky bit. And had a son named Dangun Wanggeom or Dangun. So Dangun, the grandson of heaven, son of a bear, founded the first Korean state of Gojoseon, meaning Old Joseon, on October 3rd, 2333 BCE. You see how Gaecheonjeol celebrates two October dates? Isn't that interesting? Do you know any holiday that celebrates and associates two legendary historical events like this? What's the creation myth or story of origin of your people or culture? Let me know. So I came across this article called All About the National Foundation Day of Korea from the University of Seoul Times English magazine, written by a Park Ji-young. It's a decent piece explaining the holiday and the history behind it. I recommend it. There's a quaint summary of the Dangun mythology. I'll read you the excerpt to summarize it and solidify the idea in your mind better. Dangun mythology, the myth on the birth of Gojoseon. Hwanung, the son of the god Hwan-in who ruled the sky, loved the human world. He led 3,000 people and the officials who managed the rain, wind, and the clouds in the world of heaven to make the human world comfortable. He built a town called Shinshi under the tree called Shindansu. One day, a bear and a tiger came and asked to make them human. Hwanung said, "If you eat only mugwort and garlic and endure 100 days in a cave, you can become human." However, the tiger could not bear it and came out of the cave, but the bear eventually became human. Hwanung married the bear, Ungnyo, which means bear woman, who turned into a female human and gave a birth to a son who was Dangun. Dangun founded his nation on Taebaek Mountain, Taebaeksan, and named it Joseon. He is also called Dangun Wanggeom, meaning that Dangun is a religious leader, and Wanggeom, Wang means king, like King Sejong the Great. You know Sejong Daewang? King Sejong the Great. So Wang means king, and Gum means a sword. Gum like Gumdo. In dirty Japanese language, you call kendo, Japanese fencing. So Wang means king, and Gum means a sword. So Wanggeom, what mean? It mean king sword. It mean Dangun Wanggeom. Dangun have a very, very mighty, huge, big penis. And from his Wanggeom, his king sword, he populates the Korea Peninsula. Yes, from his king penis, he gave birth to all the Korea people. All hail Dangun and his mighty, honorable, legendary, huge king penis from the heaven. Very honorable, legendary, huge king penis from heaven. That's the meaning of the Gaecheonjeol. Thank you for listening to Mayim Time. I'm totally fucking with y'all. Wanggeom just means he's a political ruler. But who knows? Maybe he did have a huge king penis from heaven. Now, there's a lot to dissect here in this mythology, but let's focus on the bear and the tiger. The prevalent interpretation is that the tiger and the bear represent two separate tribes, ancient Korean tribes, who sought the power of Dangun. One tribe worshipped the tiger, the other worshipped the bear, and the bear tribe won. And who knows what 100 days in a cave and what, eating mugwort and garlic are supposed to represent, like what that means. Maybe the bear tribe won and survived because they had better knowledge of using like the scarce land resources, like they found garlic and mugwort, and that's literally like what they had to survive off. Who knows, were they maybe psychedelic or laced with something? There's that stoned ape theory. Well, what about the stoned bear theory? Maybe that's how the bear tribe survived and attained higher consciousness. I don't know. Now, I'm going to digress and talk about bear worship, specifically Neanderthals and bear worship. Now, fam, this is the part where I say a lot of crazy shit, and I give you my cheeky mime time disclaimer. I'm not an archaeologist or a proper historian, Anything I can say could be wrong, could be a false connection. My logic or experience could be lacking. The resources that I read, maybe they're off and whatever. Take everything I say with a grain of salt. Do your own research, think for yourself, and all that shit. God forbid you believe something just because I say it, and I know that's possible because I've believed tons of shit my whole life just because people have said it. Just because people say shit doesn't mean it's true or the whole truth. I'm still learning. If I ever say something on the show that's wrong, tell me. I appreciate constructive criticism. I try not to let my ego be too invested into my ideas or perspectives, so I'm always open. So, about bears, you can look up all this shit on North Eurasian cultures worshiping bears, like ancient Finnish people. Shout out to all my Finns, Hiva Hiva, oh yeah, and the Ainu tribe in Japan. They had their whole attitude and rituals regarding bears stuff. Neanderthals worshipped the bear. Archaeologists found bear bones arranged in peculiar ways in Neanderthal caves and shit like 100,000 years ago or something. Like you can look this up. Neanderthal, bear worship, cave, whatever. They say Europeans and Northeast Asians share some Neanderthal DNA. Let's just posit that some Neanderthals worshipped bears in different parts of the world. There's this crazy book, which I still haven't finished, called The Dream Culture of the Neanderthals by Stan Gooch. Shout out to the Gooch, Gooch, Gooch. We goochin' hard out here. I'm going to briefly explain his background. He was this British psychologist, a respectable academic, or he would have become a more respectable academic. Anyways, he wrote all these fascinating, aka crazy ideas on the origin of humanity and the paranormal. Crazy, not necessarily in a bad way, but as an out there, not mainstream alternative. He was an intelligent, educated scholar who had a crazy paranormal experience where he went to a seance with some friends when he was 26. Like he was just like a, I don't know, like a preppy academic nerd or some dude in the England. Yeah, and when he was 26 with his friends seance, he saw a caveman in the corner of the room, who he later thought to be a Neanderthal as its ancestor. His ideas about the paranormal are fascinating, and perhaps I should save that for a Halloween episode on the paranormal and spiritual. I don't mind getting a little weird here on Mime Time. So, Stan Gooch, the Goochinator, what a funny name. I can't believe his last name is Gooch. For maybe some of you non-native English speakers or even native English speakers, if you don't know what a Gooch is, just I don't know, look it up on Urban Dictionary. One might say that Stan Gooch wasn't just out there, but he was down there. Oh yeah. He wrote a bunch of books. One of them called Guardians of the Ancient Wisdom. Guardians of the Ancient Wisdom, which sounds like a cheesy fantasy RPG. Actually, I would play that shit. It was later republished as The Dream Culture of the Neanderthals, of which I have a copy on Kindle. This book explores the influence of Neanderthals on the cultural and biological development of humanity and explains shit like why 13 is considered an unlucky number, why 7 is a lucky number, why we knock on wood for good luck, and so on. I mean, did you ever wonder about triskaidekaphobia, the fear of the number 13? Why are people all superstitious and shit about it? Well, this book explains it. So, for the purpose of this episode, let me briefly summarize the author's explanation, Stan Gooch's explanation of why number 7 is lucky. Have you ever thought about that? Why is 7 a lucky number? Why not 5 or 9? Get ready to have your mind blown hard. So, Gooch, in his book, The Dream Culture of the Neanderthals, when he talks about the number 7, he cites another dude named Jeffrey Ash. And I quote, "He has produced a massive evidence to show that the origin of the mystical 7 is the 7 stars that make up the constellation that we in Britain popularly call the Plough, and the Americans, the Big Dipper." All sorts of ancient cultures and religions have some kind of significance with this number 7. If you read the Bible and just look up Bible number 7, you're going to come up with a bunch of shit. So what Stan Gooch, Gooch is saying here is that all the ancient references to 7 come from the 7 stars in the sky that make up the Big Dipper. This constellation is also widely known as the Great Bear, and on our modern star maps, this is, in fact, its official Latin title, Ursa Major. Ash finds that this name is also the most ancient, and as far as we can tell, the original name given to this constellation by early man. So, the idea is that the Neanderthals would have spent a lot of time looking at the night sky when there was no electricity harnessed by man. No cities, no light pollution, just the fucking sky and all the stars. Ursa Major, aka Big Bear, aka the Big Dipper, is the most easily identifiable constellation in the sky. It is visible throughout the whole northern hemisphere. In most areas, including Europe, and unlike most constellations, it never dips below the horizon. Instead, through the night, it moves in a circle around the sky, orbiting the still center of the heavens. That's why 7 is a lucky number, because there are 7 stars in the sky. The first constellation identified by man. What? They didn't teach me that in elementary school. That's cool. The 7 stars, which are fixed, gave direction and light in the ancient night. I don't know, you could interpret that as order, stability, strength in the middle of a chaotic sky and a dangerous world. And I'm not sure why they saw it as a bear. I mean, if you look at the Big Dipper, does it look like a Big Dipper? Does it look like a bear or a lion or a giant crab or a flying spaghetti monster? I mean, you tell me what you see when you look at the 7 stars in the sky, the Big Dipper. Yeah, I don't know why, but perhaps the bear was the mightiest animal that they knew, the Neanderthals living in the northern hemisphere. So they equated it to the mighty 7 stars in the sky. If there were elephants in the northern hemisphere, perhaps it wouldn't be Ursa Major, but Elephante Major. Oh, you see what I did there? Not the great bear, but the great elephant in the sky. Anyways, I'm just trying to present to you this connection between Neanderthals, bear worship, the lucky 7 stars in the sky, seen as a great bear, and the Proto-Korean bear-worshipping tribe known as Unya, the woman bear that Hwanung, the sky god, impregnated, which leads to the mythical King Dangun and his legendary formation of the ancient-ass Gojoseon kingdom. I'm not doing justice to this at all. Maybe there's someone out there who can put these points together and connect them more neatly. You might think I'm just speculating or missing information, which I most definitely am. So, like I said, do your own research and let me know what you find or what you think. This is not definitive by any means, but I just want to spark the conversation so that maybe we can shed some more light on, Korea's past history and our origins as a species as a whole and all that shit. So, we started talking about this holiday, Gaecheonjeol, the legendary origin of Korea with the Dangun mythology, Dangun being the son of a bear, to talking about the ancient bear tribe, to connecting to ancient Neanderthal bear worship and the stars. And you might think, what does this all mean? What the fuck is the point, mime? I don't care about this. Why don't you be more relevant? Why don't you talk about the Squid Game? I'd rather be watching that than listening to this stupid bullshit. Motherfucking Neanderthals and bears and Dangun and shit. Okay, fam. I'll tell you what I think this story means. What do I think Hwanung and the heavenly gods were? That's right. Aliens. They were fucking aliens, man! Korean people descended from aliens! Just think about it. Hwanung came down to Earth with 3,000 followers, more like 3,000 extraterrestrials. They beamed down from 7 motherships, camouflaged as 7 stars in the sky, onto Taebaek Mountain. Then they rounded up a tiger and a bear and forced them to eat garlic and mugwort they brought from outer space for 100 days. That cave that they were stuck in for 100 days, actually a spaceship. It wasn't a cave, it was a spaceship. That's right. Garlic and mugwort are alien plants. I mean, when you eat them, doesn't it feel like you're eating something from another planet? The tiger couldn't handle it, so they jettisoned that poor tiger out into fucking space, but the bear survived. This ancient space garlic and mugwort mutated the bear's DNA to make her more ripe for reproduction, with the alien god Hwanung, and then he gave it to her hard. So hard, he started populating the peninsula with what we now know as Korean people. Have I blown your mind yet? Talking about ghosts and aliens and tigers and bears. Oh my. Oh yeah. Kidding aside, I think there's this modern delusion that affects a lot of people that unless something is scientifically or historically recorded and proven, it's not quote unquote real and doesn't have value. This whole perspective that something has to be literal or the date has to be exactly right is very anachronistic and counterproductive and just lame. It's so old. I'm so done with it. That's like saying the Bible isn't 100% literally, factually, historically, scientifically correct or whatever. So therefore, it's just filled with a bunch of bullshit and we can just disregard it completely. This is like a logical fallacy or some kind of mental trap that both modern Christians and atheist, anti Christian skeptics fall into. Modern Christians will be like, the Bible is 100% factually true and like it's inerrant and inspired by God. It has to be. And that's how I used to think about the Bible too. And before I start getting into rants about Christianity and the Bible, I need to save that for the Christianity series. Let me just say, yes, there may indeed be some bullshit in the Bible or shit we just don't understand, but that doesn't mean it doesn't have valuable, interesting things and lessons to say, even for dirty, ungodly, pagan heathens like myself. Maybe I'm building a straw man here, but hear me out. Some people like to say stupid shit like, Jesus wasn't born on December 25th. You guys are all idiots for celebrating Christmas. I mean, they have a point. Nowhere, even in the New Testament, does it say the dates that Jesus was actually born. That doesn't mean Jesus wasn't a real person who was born. It's just whatever. That's the date that was picked by some people who died a long time ago to celebrate it. Maybe they didn't care if it was the actual date or not. They just thought, let's pick a date. Or maybe they had some other legitimate reason. I mean, modern Western Christmas is actually this Christianized pagan winter ritual. Did Saint Paul or the 12 disciples celebrate Christmas with like pine trees and shit? Of course not. It's just something that the European church way back in the day instituted. They culturally appropriated the pagan winter festival or whatever and Christianized it. You know what? That's fine. My point here is that what is the core meaning spiritually or culturally to take away from this or any historically significant holiday or event? Remember, history should be viewed as nothing more than the rich prologue to one's individual becoming, a la Ralph Waldo Emerson in Self-Reliance. Like he basically says, don't give a fuck about history and the old dusty books. Just think about it as, well, what does this have to do with me today? I interpret that as defining the past in the context of today. To remind you, I'm just a Korean American guy who's had a very hard time dealing with identity, pretending like it didn't matter to me throughout my whole life, and then trying to address the issues head on after realizing that it's impossible to run away from myself and all the questions that I have, which is why I have this fucking podcast and why you're listening to me right now. And I'm very, very grateful that you are, if you still are. And even up until now, if you're still listening to this, you're the motherfucking gods, mate. I want to tell you, dear audience, that I do notice this big divide between myself and actual Koreans when it comes to ethnic identity and ethnic pride and all that stuff. And I will put it flat out there that I'm overcompensating big time, making a big deal of like culture and identity because I had such a hard time with it growing up. Because actually, regular Korean people, like, they don't give a fuck. They don't care. To a lot of Koreans, it's irrelevant to them, especially this holiday. You know what? This should be like Korea's July 4th. There should be like big ass wild parties and fireworks and shit. Like doing all this research and writing out the ideas for this episode and what I want to tell you. I mean, this is a day out of the year. You know, maybe it's some modern like fabrication or whatever, but like this is the day that celebrates the existence of Korean people. And like people just don't seem to care all that much. I just had lunch with my girlfriend and one of her best friends. They're both Korean and they don't care about Gaecheonjeol. They said this is just a recently modern instituted holiday to promote 민족성, and you know, like national pride, ethnic pride. And they basically dismiss it as propaganda, that it's as if it's nothing special that they're Korean. Because when I when I told them, just like as I told you at the beginning of this episode, my dear listeners, about how Gaecheonjeol supposedly, is supposed to commemorate October 3rd, 2457 BCE, as well as October 3rd, 2333 BCE. Like they did the same shit, my girlfriend and her friend. I'm not judging them, but like what they were just like, oh, really? Like, how do you know that the dates were actually that? And you see, we all fall for this stupid shit. Like, it's so elementary. Yes, no one can fucking prove that it was this is the original date, right? No, obviously nobody can say with 100% truth that in the year 2457 before Common Era, October 3rd, that a motherfucking sky god came down onto like Tebek Mountain, right? Like, who cares if it's not like 100% scientifically, historically verifiable or accurate? That's missing the fucking point. Oh, you're so smart that this obviously mythical event might not have happened on the actual literal date that we ascribe it to. Oh, so you figured out that Jesus wasn't actually born on December 25th. You're the motherfucking god, mate. Wow, amazing. The clapping sounds I just made, it kind of sounds like fapping sounds. Oh, yeah. Anyways, look, I know I'm getting too sarcastic, and I'm not trying to like diss my girlfriend or her friend, because it's something that everyone does, actually. My point is, people are too concerned with the literal superficial details of history or stuff like the Bible and this cultural mythology. And they use that as an excuse to not dive deeper into the metaphysical, deeper meaning that could have profound implications spiritually, culturally, psychologically, anthropologically, socially, whatever, what have you. Anyways, to wrap up a point here, a lot of Korean people, especially the younger generations, like my generation, don't really care about 민족성 or ethnic identity the way that I do. I think because they just grew up with it and they take it for granted. Like maybe they were just like submerged and it was like just pushed on them their whole lives growing up in the society. So like they just stopped caring, or, they find it oppressive. And I don't blame them or judge them. That's for an entirely different, interesting episode of Mime Time. So, after all this rambling, my dear audience, my dear Mime Timers, I should tell you, what does Gaecheonjeol mean to me, the opening of heaven, this holiday? It celebrates the Korean people. It celebrates our heritage. It celebrates our existence, the very being of life. I am alive, but where did I come from? I come from this people and their silly story about a sky god who had sex with a bear after force feeding it to eat garlic for 100 days in a cave thousands of years ago. This may be a trite thing to say. Collectively, this is our story and our identity, and individualistically, my story and my identity. I choose to explore it and cherish it for what it is: dusty warts and confusing symbology and bestiality and all. I accept it all for what it is, and I cherish it, and I'm grateful for this heritage because it's ours and because it's mine. And I have to make this disclaimer. I'm not saying all this to exclude or demean others who aren't Korean. I'm not trying to kukbong or be jingoistic about my Korean pride. That's lame. I'm trying to do the opposite. I'm trying to be genuine and authentic to myself and encourage all to do the same. I'm a Korean American dude. I'm Korean Asian diaspora trying to get in touch with my roots and find out like my origin and learn about the people that I come from so I can have a better idea of who I am, so that I can perhaps give you guys a model or some different perspective. It doesn't mean I have all the answers figured out, but maybe it'll help you think in your own personal journey, in your own struggles with identity. There is an opportunity for all mankind to consider their own racial, ethnic, cultural origins and dig as deep as you can, and embrace whatever stories that were passed on to you. Gaecheonjeol, Old Joseon, Dangun. To me, it's not a dusty old irrelevant myth, nor simply just reactionary propaganda to Japanese colonialism and oppression, instated by the provisional government 100 years ago. I may not understand the entire meaning of it, but the myth, the story, is alive and breathing in me. Father Supreme Divine Regent named Hwanung. Mother Bear named Ungnya. Dangun Wanggeom, the legendary founder of Korea. They are all alive and made manifest in me. Fuck it. I'm a descendant of a god who came down from heaven 4,500 years ago. I'm a motherfucking god, mate. I am ancient myth become flesh. I fall on my knees and bow down to Dangun, the mythical father figure founder of Korea who may or may not have been a real person. He's just a signpost to God, the big whatever or whoever that created everything. Just like Jesus is a signpost to God. This is the part where the Christians get triggered and say, no, mime, Jesus is not just a signpost to God, but Jesus is God, yada, yada. It makes more sense for me to worship Dangun than worship Jesus. Maybe that's for another episode. What I want to share with you is similar to the Gwangbokjeol, Korea's National Liberation Day episode special. I had to go through my own personal hell since I was a kid because I didn't know who I was or where I came from. I hated being Korean. I hated Koreans. I hated Korean language and culture. I didn't want anything to do with it. I struggled. And maybe if I didn't grow up in America with my identity struggle, I wouldn't give a fuck as an adult. I wouldn't care. Just like a lot of Korean people don't care, as I mentioned earlier. I'd just be like every other Korean person in Seoul right now who's glad to just have a day off work or school in this miserable and oppressively difficult society, right? Like had my family never moved to America and we just stayed in Korea. I had to go through all the shit I went through in order to appreciate what I have, who I am, and where I come from today. Now I love Korean shit. I wouldn't dream of being anything else but Korean. I'm not just proud, but I'm humbled. I'm grateful. And I don't have everything figured out. I'm still finding myself. But beyond a shadow of a doubt, I love myself and I love Korea and I love my Korean identity, the part of me that is Korean anyway. Gaecheon, the opening of heaven. It means a celebration of thousands of years of history, whether it was 2,000 or 4.5 thousand or 5,000. And in the context of Proto-Korean history with the Neanderthals and the bear worshippers, I don't know, potentially 100,000 years of history or more. It's a celebration of all the people who came before us, before me. All those people, real or legendary. All their stories, real or imagined, have meaning. They all come alive in me. I celebrate them. I'm thankful for them. That I could be here today, ranting and raving alone at home in a microphone to share all my crazy shit with you in a language that's not even my mother tongue, but the lingua franca of all humanity. That's right. I'm speaking the English, motherfucker. I can connect with you, Koreans, Americans, people from all over the world, all walks of life. I can continuously grow and evolve and learn and shift into new mind-blowing paradigms. You can hear my story, our story, and I can hear your story. I can be here to bring a message of hope, peace, joy, love, solidarity in our struggle, self-knowledge, self-actualization, the liberation of mankind, whatever that means. I can be as ambitious and pursue all the delusions of grandeur as much as I want because I exist thanks to those who came before me. To all Koreans on the peninsula and abroad, we are children of gods, children of Dangun. We're motherfucking gods, mate! We have immense potential. We came this far, all the way from our ancient, stargazing Neanderthal, bear-worshipping ancestors hundreds of thousands of years ago, to the Gojoseon kingdom a few thousand years ago, to millennia of wars and conflict and subjugation and oppression, a fratricidal war that tore our people apart, to this fucking insane technological 21st century postmodern brave new world where people still struggle to make a living, still suffer, still search for meaning in life, still don't know who we are. The modern, prosperous, developed nation of Korea hasn't even been around for 50 years. I feel like we're waking up from a crazy Neanderthal dream. It's like coming up to the surface of a deep ocean of primordial consciousness, like finally a moment to breathe After drowning for thousands of years in a struggle just to survive, I have the opportunity, the privilege, the time to just wonder who I am, who we are, and where we're going. We're barely just waking up. Let's wake up. Look up and witness the opening of heaven. Look at the 7 stars. See the mother bear of celestial fortune. That is where we came from. And once we get on these motherfucking Sejong space rockets, that's where we will return. Hold up. 잠깐만. We were the aliens?